Hey there, welcome to Synth Seeker. My name is Luke. So it's been 2 weeks since our last diary. This is music making diary number 10. Let's see, what's happened? A lot of things have changed in the last 2 weeks. And so let me just bring you up to speed on what's going on. Last weekend was Knobcon in the Chicago area. Went to that, spent Thursday through Sunday there. Fantastic conference. If you're going to go to a synth convention in the United States, Knobcon is a really warm and friendly conference to go to. There's a large focus on modular, but there was ample stuff for people like me who like the big old school monolithic synthesizer keyboards. There were quite a few of those there. I went there specifically because I went to Knobcon because I wanted to meet all of my Discord-based acquaintances and YouTube acquaintances, people who I have known virtually for years but never met in person. Finally met a bunch of them in person, so a gaggle of us hung out and had a great time, really. And the other reason I went was I wanted to get my hands on a Take 5, believe it or not. I don't have a Dave Smith sequential synth in my collection. I've got virtual ones. And I've got the third wave, which is has the same filter chips, but, and so a certain amount of pedigree there. Dave blessed the third wave when the groove synthesis guys came to him. But I just have never touched a Prophet 5, Prophet 6, Prophet Rev 2, any of those. Never laid a hand on them, and I really wanted to. So I went there, tried the Oberheim, tried the Trigon 6, and I tried the Take 5. And I like the Take 5. I don't want to spend a huge amount of money. And even the Take 5 isn't cheap, but it isn't cheaply built, and it sounds great. So it's on the list now. Something I'm interested in picking up maybe around Christmas of this year and early next year, something like that. So it'll come back in the stable. So spend some time at Knobcon. I do not have COVID, haven't contracted COVID. After Knobcon, a few people posted that they were sick and had COVID. My little circle has this little online Discord support message group where we're posting every day, hey, how's everybody? And everybody's been like healthy, tested positive, et cetera, et cetera. So I think I lucked out. Nothing from the plane and nothing from the convention itself. So that was cool. Anyway, so definitely go to Knobcon if you can. I'm going to go again next year. Maybe we'll run into each other. All right. What else is going on? So I managed to get an agreement with a drummer I had met online. So he was at Knobcon. We discussed basically hiring him as a studio musician to do drum parts for the first track that I'd been working on. He liked it. He said, yeah, I'm excited to do that. I'm going to get with him and start actively working on it sort of mid-October timeframe. So that's what's going on there. So that's good. What's going on with the rest of my projects? Well, as you can see from these photos, I have reconfigured the studio yet again. Now, this is because of Knobcon, okay? The studio is now set up once again. It's been a number of years since I've done this, but it is back and configured for quadrophonic recording and playback. A number of years ago at the New England Synth Fest, I hosted a quad room where I had a room where everything was set up in quad, and there was one of my peers who did modular, had a quad, 4-output modular system, with north, south, east, west panning. And then I did an Ableton Live and Push set in quad using the Maxra Live surround panner set up for room mode quad. And it was super fun. And so we did performances in quad, and then we let people play. They could come in and play the instruments and position things in the sound field, and you're standing in the middle of it when you're playing. Quad is super fun if you can, deal with having the room set up as quad. And if you want to get into it, if you search on Google for Wendy Carlos surround sound, Wendy Carlos has written numerous papers on all of the variants of surround sound. with a large section on quad and quad speaker placement, and getting down to like angles and positions in the room and what's optimal and what's not. She even covers a bunch of cases of things they tried that didn't work and why it didn't work. Everything's a trade-off in your studio, right? And my studio is literally this room. It's not treated because I generally work in headphones. But with quad, I know they make headphones that claim to support quad, and maybe there's some psychoacoustic behavior they're messing with there that it gets close, or maybe it does a great job. I don't know. I just know that when I'm sitting in the space at the focus of a quad rig and I've got things moving, oh, it's freaking awesome. So I'm doing that. I may consider treating the room now. To try and get rid of some of the standing waves, some of the resonance, but it's still, it's glorious. So the studio set up for quad, and I'm experimenting with quad. Why am I doing that again? I had done it a number of years ago and been like, this is great, but the overhead's a pain in the ass and nobody can listen to it. Well, I was when I was at Knobcon, a friend of mine came up, one of the organizers for New England Synth Fest that I had worked on with this fellow previously. He's sort of one of the head honchos now. He's really carrying it forward, and I'm sort of backing off of that. I like to be a part of the petting zoo, and I will be a part of the petting zoo. If you come to New England Synth Fest on October 28th, it's in Burlington, Massachusetts, at the Microsoft Learning Annex there. I will be in the petting zoo as one of the zookeepers. We can come chat. But I was talking to this fellow. I don't like to drop names. So there was this guy. He's wearing an NESF shirt. He's a friend of mine. And he was like, hey, did you see Kilpatrick Audio's quadrature mixing, 6-channel quad mixer that they had in hardware? It's intended for modular. And I'm like, I saw it, but I didn't touch it. I'm not getting back into modular. I'm not getting back into modular, right? And he's like, it's just a glorious thing. You should check it out. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And we chatted. It was good. And he wandered off eventually. And then about an hour later, he comes back with one of the Kilpatrick Audio guys, Pat. And he's like, yeah, talk to Luke. Luke did quad stuff for the NESF stuff a while back. And we got to talk about quad and things like that. And one of the things he said, this guy from Kilpatrick, was he said, they're having a hard time getting quad content to demo their stuff with. And he asked me, do you have any of your old quad recordings? And I'm like, well, I really only ever put up one because it's a pain. I did it up as 2 stereo files, a left, right, front, back, and a left, right, a left, right, front, and then a second file is a left, right, back. But unless you have the rig set up to play that back 2 files simultaneously, you've got a DAW or something, right? The only people who play back that stuff are people who are set up to record it anyway, right? There aren't very many home consumers who do that. And I don't do any form of encoding down to a single file. Like I'm not doing, Dolby Surround 4.1 or 4.2 quad, because it's just a pain in the butt. I just don't distribute that way. It's not easy. Like the return on effort's pretty low. And I just didn't do it. But he's like, we need content. If you ever make any more content, let us know. We'll use it to demo our stuff with. And I'm like, oh, I could do that for you. That's actually pretty motivating. Maybe I'll do something for you by Christmas. I'll deliver a track to you guys. That's, some 10-minute piece that's absurdly quad centric, right? With lots of movement and stuff. He was like, cool. And I find that super motivating. So I come home from Knobcon, tell my wife, don't look, it's going to get ugly, and, reconfigured for quad. So that's where we're at now. And the stuff I used to do quad changed pretty significantly. I used to use the Ableton Max for Live surround panner. But that the guys who wrote that have, if you go to maxforlive.com, they have pushed that on, pushed beyond that now. There's a really nice quad panner from these guys now. And it's a lot more useful. And so I've been experimenting with that. So that's what we're looking at today. This is a quad test set. Now if you're watching this on YouTube, obviously YouTube doesn't support quad. And I'm not going to drop any files out there that are quad right now. So what I do is I basically just merge the front and rear. So front left and front right and rear right get merged together. And as long as I didn't screw anything up, there's no phase cancellation. and they just sound, like it's a stereo mix. And that's what I'm doing here in the set. It's running out. There's a front and rear, left, right, which are running to my speakers, right? But the headphone mix is just a merge of that down into left and right. And so that's what I'm listening to through here when I'm not actively recording, content for the channel. I don't even use headphones at this point. I'm just in quad land all the time, floating in space. So what's going on? So since I've reconfigured for quad, I've pared down the synths that I'm using. A bunch of stuff's off to the side. It's in dust covers now. And I really only have 2 hardware synths and then whatever soft synths I want to use. The 2 hardware synths is that I've got a third wave that's in here doing this sort of bell stuff. Right, and I'm playing around. I like the Korg Trinity, the mod wave, op6, wave state. So this is the mod wave. I've used this patch before. This is a preset called Cassini. Really like that. And let's see. Then, so the hardware-wise, I'm using the third wave, and I'm using the Novation Summit. And I'm actually experimenting with a new soft synth. One of the guys in the Discord said, hey, you should check out Hyperion, the Hyperion synth. And I'm liking it a lot. They just had a release of a sort of a player for it. So Hyperion is like this. I have not a strong Hyperion user. I am still RTFMing it. But it's like a sort of like Reactor in that there's a sort of a modular sort of creation thing. It's a bit like Falcon or one of those, basically. It's a toolkit for making your sounds. Now, because this is complex, what they've done, and I don't have an instance running right now, but they've got a thing called Theia, Theira. That's sort of their new release. And it's like it's sort of like the Contact player is to Contact. Theia is sort of like the player interface for Hyperion. It basically simplifies the controls down to a few macros, and it is intended to play back presets for the most part. And that's fun too. I'll continue to mess with that stuff over time, and I'll talk more about it. But I am just screwing around with Hyperion here. The very first time I loaded up a Hyperion preset, and this may just be because of random chance, but the very first sound I ever heard it make on my system was something that reminded me very much of the Moog modular in Clockwork Orange. It's a very sort of tuba-y, trumpety sort of, and it immediately grabbed me. I liked it. I don't do reviews, right? But I will share. I'm messing around with Hyperion and I'm liking it. It's relatively inexpensive. So I think Theia is on sale. It's also very inexpensive, but so go check out Hyperion and Theia. And then you'll stand by Omnisphere, of course. So what's happening here with Omnisphere is fun. When I'm in quad, this is really trippy. It's a random LFO is messing with the panner. So basically, the panner is just every eighth note is doing a random pan. Now, when you do this, you have to offset a little bit because you don't want it to pan right on the grid because you get a snapping. If it goes like from hard left to far hard right, you're going to get a click. You're going to get a snapping motion, snapping sort of sound. It's really distracting to your ear to hear a note, hear the first like 50 milliseconds of a note of an attack, and then have it snap to the other side. I find that jarring. So what I tend to do is I smooth out the transition so there's not quite such an abrupt snap. You're not going to get any audio pops. But I also adjust the phase just a little bit, throw it out of phase. and that's phase in time, not in left, right, front, back phasing. It's so that the snapping of the position happens just before the note strikes. So the attack is cleanly positioned. Right. Something to think about if you're going to mess around with just generally automated panning of any kind, not just quad. And so, yeah, I'm having a good time with that. The other thing that's a bit tricky in quad is getting your ambience, so reverbs for the most part, to not move around as well. Like you can, there's nothing wrong with dropping a reverb on a track in front of the surround panner and then, letting the reverb itself, the ambience will shift as well. I kind of find that a little too uncanny valley. It's a little too unreal. Like if you want to shoot for, a sonic space that doesn't exist in reality, that's fine. But my ambiences, I like them to be there. So if I've got the instrument moving all over the place, I want, if I get a sound attack on the far left, front left, rear left, whatever, if it's on the left, I want the associated ambience there to stay there, even though the sound might, an eighth note later, jump somewhere else. Like if it was here when it struck and then it moved away, I want the reverberation of that to be over here still. So so if the pan is doing 1, 2, 3, 4 like this, when it's over here and the note strikes and then moves away, I want the reverberations. I want the echo of the history that thing was here to stay here. I don't want the ambience to move with it. So that was a little tricky to set up, but it's doable. You end up, and it's tough because in Ableton, sends are always stereo. I can't do a multi-channel send, or at least I don't know how to do a multi-channel send. There may be a Max for Live way to do it. But the new surround panner is part of a multi-channel package that I'm still learning. But anyway, it's something to think about when you're moving things around, just even if you're not even quad, if you're left and right, when you move something in the stereo field, and you've got a lot of ambience there, you want to maintain that. Using sends helps the ambience stay positioned where you want it to be. But can't do that in quad, so it's tricky. Anyway, I got it worked out, though. I'm happy with that. All right, so let's talk about this. Oh, there was another question. I got a YouTube comment about an old Max for Live plugin I did. Jump to empty slot. There's a video on that, link in the corner. It's just a utility that allows you to move, when you move between tracks, it causes the currently selected slot to be the first slot that is empty. So like you can see there are 3 clips here. When I go, 1, 2, 3. Well, when I'm flipping back and forth between these tracks, it's convenient, and what this utility does is any track that it's on will exhibit this behavior. So like if I've got it on this track, so right now, let's say I've got the 4th scene selected on this track, okay. If I jump over to track 2, the selected scene jumps to the first one. That's the first empty slot. If I jump back to the 3rd wave track, it selects this slot. Without this plugin, right, what will happen is the current scene will just stay selected. And if I go back and forth, here, if I turn this off, for example, let's fix this behavior. In both cases, I'll turn it off. So without this plugin active, what happens is I've got the first scene selected. If I go between these two, you can see the scene that stays selected. So it's selecting a clip where I've got something recorded already. What this utility does is when it's turned on, it will move the selected slot down to the first empty one. So it's basically ready to record. This is a convenience for the way I use the push. And I got a comment from someone saying, hey, it doesn't seem to be working. And I told them I would go test it. And so it seems fine. Like, I don't know. I updated these to support MPE as a pass-through a while back. But so now when I flip back and forth, we're in first slot, 4th slot, first slot, 4th slot. So it seems to be working. I'm sorry, buddy. Leave a comment, see what's going on. Maybe your Max for Live. I'm using the current version of Ableton. I let it update Max for Live every time Ableton updates. It wants to update its internal Max for Live. I let it do that. I'm not using an external. I have an external Max installed, but Ableton is using the embedded one that comes with Ableton. So I'm not sure what the problem is there. Try maybe pulling the, deleting it out of your user library and re-importing it. I don't know. I know that sucks. That's like the equivalent of saying, oh, what's wrong with your computer? Well, turn it on and off again and see what happens. I'm not sure. Reboot it. So let me know if you get stuck, and we'll try and figure it out. But so yeah, jump to empty slot, and that seems to be working. So all right, so let's listen to what we got here. I've got, we'll just bring in the parts one at a time. This is a demo. The title of this file is Quad Test. It's me trying to play with this setup. So if we bring Ableton, let's see, here's Omnisphere. All right. And if we place a little third wave. There's Hyperion, and it's just going to move around. Right, it's just playing octaves, and it's slowly panning back and forth. If you were in quad, it's actually going in a circle. Okay. All right, and we'll bring in some summit. All right, summit will play just a little stab every bar or so. There it is again. All right. We'll bring in our Cassini on the mod wave. So just a little noodle, just playing around with that. Anyway, so hey, thanks for watching. This has been Music Making Diary number 10. Just a little update on what's going on. So hiring a drummer for track 1, went back to quad, had a great time at Knobcon, and thanks for watching. And as always, you've been watching Synth Seeker. Have a great week.